The Social Security Administration recently released its 2026 Trustees Report, and the headlines were not encouraging. According to the report, the Social Security Trust Fund is now projected to be depleted by 2032, 1 year earlier than previously projected. And if Congress does nothing, the report estimates that only about 78% of the scheduled retirement benefits could be funded at that point, implying a roughly 22% reduction in benefits for retirees. Now, for someone expecting $4,000 per month from Social Security, that would mean receiving closer to $3,100. That's more than $10,000 per year of lost income. And you can double that for married couples, which naturally raises the important question. Should Social Security even be included in retirement projections? Or should retirees and pre-retirees discount those benefits or ignore them altogether? My name is Jaco Jordaan. I'm a certified financial planner with River Chase Wealth Management. And every year I hear people say, Social Security's going bankrupt. I don't expect to receive a dime, or Congress will never fix it. And if you're approaching retirement, that kind of thinking can lead to some costly planning mistakes. So today we're going to answer three important questions. Is Social Security really running out of money? Why is the system facing a funding shortfall? And most importantly, should you include Social Security in your retirement plan? I'll tell you up front where I land on this issue. I believe current retirees and people approaching retirement should absolutely include Social Security in their financial modeling. Not because the program doesn't have challenges, it does, but because history, politics, and the available policy solutions all suggest that Congress is likely to act before large benefit reductions hits current retirees. In fact, the most likely to experience changes may not be average retirees at all. Future reforms are more likely to target higher income households through taxes, benefit formulas, or COLA adjustments than through across-the-board benefit cuts. So let's dive in. What does Social Security is going broke actually mean? First, let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions. Social Security is not going to run out of money and stop paying benefits. That's just not how the system works. Social Security is funded primarily through payroll taxes paid by current workers. So that's the 6.2% tax that you see getting taken out on your pay stub. And what you may not know is that your employer also is paying 6.2%, meaning the total is 12.4% of payroll. Those taxes go into the system and they're used for paying benefits. Unfortunately, that's not quite enough to pay total benefits. Over the years, a surplus of collected taxes has been saved in the Social Security Trust Fund, and the shortage between benefits payable and the payroll taxes collected is paid out of this trust fund. That's the fund that is now projected to run out of money in 2032. But even if the trust fund were depleted, payroll taxes would continue flowing into the system, and based on current projections, at least 78% of benefits would continue to be paid. That's a problem, but it's very different from Social Security is going to disappear. The real question isn't whether benefits continue. The real question is what Congress does before that point arrives. So why is Social Security running out of money? To understand why I believe Congress will act, we first need to understand why the shortfall exists. Reason number one, there are fewer workers supporting retirees. So Social Security is essentially a transfer system. Current workers support current retirees. And decades ago, there were far more workers supporting each beneficiary. So in 1960, there were about 5 workers supporting each Social Security beneficiary. Today, there's less than 3. And projections show that the ratio is going to continue to decline over the coming decades. Now, the decline results from several areas. First, like most first world countries, the U.S. has experienced lower birth rates than previous projections assumed. And 18 to 20 years later, that means there's fewer workers and less payroll tax revenue relative to those benefits. And a second major factor is lower immigration. So the latest projections reduced assumptions for future immigration, which worsened the long-term outlook. Just like lower birth rates, lower immigration rates result in lower workforce growth, which results in lower payroll tax revenues, and the math simply becomes more difficult. When workforce growth slows, Social Security finances become more strained. Reason number 2, people are living longer. So that's obviously actually good news, but People are healthier and they're living longer lives. The challenge is that retirees now collect benefits for many more years than policymakers anticipated when much of the system was designed. And in many cases, people are spending 25, 30 years in retirement. So longer retirement means larger benefit obligations. And again, that's wonderful from a human perspective, but it creates funding pressure. So number 3, the taxable wage base hasn't kept pace with wage growth. And many people don't realize that there is a cap on wages to Social Security taxes. And today, income above a certain threshold is not subject to Social Security payroll tax. Historically, Congress intended for about 90% of covered wages to be subject to Social Security taxes. And in 1993, that was roughly the case. Today, because high-income wages have grown faster than average wages, only about 83% of covered wages are subject to payroll tax. And as a result, a growing share of earnings escaped Social Security taxation. That's one reason many reform proposals include increasing the taxable wage base. Okay, reason number 4, recent tax changes. The 2026 Trustees Report notes that the provisions within the One Big Beautiful Bill Act reduced projected revenues flowing into Social Security. Now, regardless of your political views, the math is straightforward. When less money flows into the system, funding challenges become larger. And the result was an earlier projected trust depletion date than before. So now we get to the question that everyone really wants answered. Will Congress fix Social Security? I think the odds are very high, and I think they're high for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, Social Security is extremely popular, and politicians can disagree on almost everything, but they all understand one thing. Social Security is one of the most popular government programs in America. So recent polling found that 93% of Americans consider Social Security to be valuable, and even more importantly, 83% believe addressing Social Security's funding challenges should be a top priority for Congress. Now, the congressional approval rating is already pretty low today, but killing Social Security seems like political suicide. You almost never see numbers like that in today's political environment. Social Security isn't just a niche issue. It's one of the few issues that unites Americans. Reason number 2, voters want a bipartisan solution. So the same polling found broad bipartisan support for strengthening Social Security. Republicans, Democrats, Independents all support efforts to preserve the program. More than 2/3 of Americans want Congress to take action sooner rather than delay difficult decisions. And politicians respond to incentives, and voters overwhelmingly want the program preserved. That creates tremendous pressure for Congress to act. All right, reason number 3, and probably the most important one, we've been here before. So many people forget that this isn't the first time Social Security has had a funding crisis. Back in 1983, Social Security faced a very serious financing challenge, with projections starting in the late 70s indicating Social Security could run out within years, similar to today's shortened timeline. Now, at that time, following recommendations of the Greenspan Commission, Congress and President Reagan worked together on a bipartisan package of reforms which passed as the Social Security Reform Act of 1983. Those changes included a gradual increase in the full retirement age from 65 to 67. They brought federal employees into the fold as Social Security eligible employees and importantly made the federal wages subject to those same payroll taxes. It accelerated previously approved payroll tax increases, and it introduced the taxability of Social Security first at 50%, and then later on that was increased to 85% under the Clinton administration. And finally, it delayed the 1983 cost of living adjustment by about 6 months. Now, these reforms successfully stabilized the system for decades. It's been 40 years. Now, today's challenge is actually larger than the one Congress faced in 1983. The Brookings Institution has noted that long-term funding shortfall today is about double what policymakers confronted in 1980. But that's actually part of the reason I remain optimistic. We have a clear historical precedent showing that when Social Security approaches a crisis point, Congress has acted. And I believe Congress will act again. So what might a fix look like? One reason I'm optimistic is that there isn't just one solution. There are dozens. And one of the most comprehensive recent proposals came from the Brookings Institution called Fixing Social Security: Blueprint for Bipartisan Solutions. What's notable about the proposal is that it doesn't rely on a single dramatic change, and instead it spreads adjustments across multiple different areas. So, potential reforms ranked by sort of the largest expected impact include increasing the taxable wage base, so higher earners pay Social Security taxes on more income. So, here's what that means. In 2026, you and your employer pay Social Security taxes on the first 184,500 of your income. Anything over that amount is not subject to Social Security tax, which means somebody making 360,000 pays approximately half the Social Security tax as somebody making 180. The wage base has not kept up with wage growth, which is why only about 83% of the wages are taxed today, down from 90% in 1983. Now, these regressive taxes are not politically popular, so there's a reasonable expectation that increasing the wage base to apply to more higher income families is an easy first step. Okay, number two, changing how the COLA is calculated or capping the COLA for higher income beneficiaries. So the COLA is the cost of living adjustment, and this change could reduce the growth in benefits, which becomes a significant factor when compounded over time. Okay, number three, gradually increasing retirement ages for future earners. So they did this back in 1983 by raising the full retirement age from 65 to 67. And the thought is they can increase that again to 68 or 69 for future generations. Now, if you're currently 65, 66, just realize that this probably would not be a hard cut, but probably would get phased in over time the same way that it was done the last time that they raised the full retirement age. Number four, means testing. So that could mean reducing benefits for high net worth retirees or retirees with high income from other sources. It could also mean changing the taxation of those benefits for higher income individuals, similar to the change in taxability, which initially increased it to 50%, then 85%, maybe now it goes to 100%. Those are some of the bigger ones, which could, in combination, make Social Security last for another 75 years. The important takeaway is this: Congress does not face a binary choice between doing nothing and cutting benefits by 22%. There's numerous policy levers available, and most likely, any eventual reform package will use several of them simultaneously. Now, Congress has not exactly been known to act well ahead of a crisis, so we may have to wait until 2031 or even 2032 to get action, but I expect it's going to happen. What does this mean for current retirees? So if you're already retired or planning to retire within the next several years, I believe the probability of experiencing a 22% benefit reduction is very low. Why? Because current retirees have very little ability to adjust. They've already made their career decision. They've already made most of their savings decisions, and they vote. Historically, Social Security reforms have largely protected current retirees while placing more adjustments on future beneficiaries. Now, it doesn't mean affluent retirees are completely insulated. Higher net worth retirees could face increased taxation of Social Security benefits, more aggressive IRMA income surcharges to prop up the Medicare side of the ASDI trusts, means testing, reduced COLA adjustments for higher income beneficiaries. Those are all possibilities. But those outcomes are very different from eliminating benefits or imposing broad 22% cuts. So what about people age 50 to 60? For this group, I still believe Social Security belongs in retirement projections. However, I think planners should probably stress test their assumptions. You might model full scheduled benefits, benefits reduced by 10%, benefits reduced by 20%. This creates a range of outcomes rather than relying on a single assumption. What about younger workers? Well, this is where we have a little less certainty. So if you're 30 years old and retirement is still 30 years away, there's much more time for policy changes to occur, and we probably won't know what that is until well into the future. I still expect Social Security will exist, but I think for younger workers, you should recognize that today's benefit formula may not be the formula that ultimately applies for them. So how do I handle Social Security and client planning when I build retirement projections? I generally include Social Security benefits. And for clients who are already retired or nearing retirement, I typically model benefits close to the current law. For younger clients, we often stress test multiple assumptions. The goal isn't to predict exactly what Congress will do. The goal is to understand whether a retirement plan remains successful across a range of outcomes. A good retirement strategy should not succeed or fail solely based on what Congress decides. So here's my bottom line. Social Security has a funding problem, but it does not have an inevitability problem. The real planning challenge isn't deciding whether Social Security is going to exist, it's understanding how potential reforms could affect your retirement income and building a plan that remains successful regardless of what Congress ultimately decides. If you'd like help evaluating how Social Security fits into your retirement strategy, that's exactly the type of planning we help clients with every day. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Thank you.